In today's video, I'm going to discuss with you the ultimate tragedy to the economy and the U.S. real estate market. You're not going to want to miss this.
I made over $100,000 last year, and I still can't afford anything. That is crazy. I know you're probably thinking, oh, $100,000, that's pretty good. In California? No. I'm moving in with my dad in about a month because prices and just living has gotten way too expensive.
Now, I'm sure many of you have your own opinion on this, but I'm about to tell you mine, which I think you're going to find very surprising right after the intro. What's going on, my YouTube friends? This is Jerry Abbott, your #1 real estate resource here in beautiful Las Vegas. Hey guys, a couple of real quick things before we dive into the video. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to learn the cold hard facts about the U.S. economy, the U.S. real estate market, and specifically the Las Vegas real estate market, then definitely subscribe to the channel down below. Number 2, if you happen to like the content in today's video, make sure to press that thumbs up like button, guys. That would really help the channel out. And number 3, if you are thinking about relocating to beautiful Las Vegas, I've got your back. I'm a local real estate agent here. I've lived here for nearly 20 years. I know every inch of the city. When that time is right for you, definitely reach out to me. Just call, text, or email me anytime, and I'll help you find that perfect dream home. Let's dive into the video. So here's the deal with that girl in the video. Some of you might think that this girl is living way beyond her means, and some of you might actually empathize with her because even $100,000 in today's economy, especially in states like California, just doesn't go that far. I have no idea how this person is living, but what I do know is this. Videos like this never existed a couple of years ago, and they are everywhere in today in social media because people are stressed out, fearful, crying on camera because they can't even survive on a $100,000 salary, and that's a really big problem in today's society. So the one thing I think we can all agree on regarding the economy and the housing market is the total lack of affordability, and I'm going to break it down specifically to the real estate market in the upcoming clips. All right, so the first and most obvious tragedy to the real estate market is how much home prices have skyrocketed, especially since the pandemic, which started right around the beginning of 2020. But you can see right at the top there, this graphic says national average house price trends. Average home prices have increased 88% in the last decade and 125% within the last 2 decades. Now, here's the thing. If we look on the left side of the graph, right over here where it says 02, right at the bottom there, in the bottom left, that was in 2002. So that was about 22 years ago. The average home price back then is showing about $150,000. And then for like the next decade, right here, as we go along that chart graph right there, about 10 years later, prices really didn't move that much. I mean, there was a little bit of a gradual incline over time. Then it really started to move from 2012 as we got up to around 2018, 2019. And then you see right there, COVID hit, and then we had this huge spike. Now up here in the top right, it's showing an average price point of $350. That's not close to the actual average number right now in the United States. It's about $400,000. So the reason I'm showing you guys this chart is not just to show you that home prices have skyrocketed over the last few years, but to also tell you that the real tragedy is that income and wages have not kept up nearly with the inflationary aspects to the entire economy, especially high ticket items like home prices. And the problem with that is that's what's creating so much unaffordability right now in the real estate market because people's incomes have not been able to catch up with this kind of spike in home prices. All right, so the second big issue regarding the real estate market is the lack of inventory. Now, I know this chart looks a little bit confusing. You can see at the top, it says existing housing units relative to population demand in the U.S. Now, if you take a look here at this horizontal line right at the top, right where it's got that kind of like orangish pink tone, if we go across right here, you can see just to the right there, it says surplus is above it and deficit is below it. Now, if we go back here, we take a look at this chart. Now, this chart goes back to 1980. So this is about 40 years or so that we go back. You can see that we had a little bit of a surplus up here in the top left side, kind of hovered right around this line. And then we had another big surplus back in the early 2000s. And then what happened is right around the 2005 mark, we started to see the decline start to happen into 2010. And then we really dropped off to around 2020 when we got to the pandemic situation. And then it just kind of came up a little bit here, but it's showing right there at the bottom left of my picture there, it's showing a deficit of about 3.2 million homes. So here's why this chart is important, because if we take a look right here in the middle, we see this light orange hump here. We see a big surplus about 15, 20 years ago. If we go across over to the left side, you see again another little small hump. So about 20 to 30 years ago, we were running in a nice surplus here and home prices were fairly reasonable. Then we started to drop off in a gradual manner, and then we really bottomed out right at the peak of the pandemic. And again, classic economics here, guys. When you have a lack of supply and a big, strong demand push like we had during the peak of the pandemic, that's why home prices have spiked. When you add in inflation and you add in corporate greed, it was the perfect storm and the perfect recipe to have absolutely super high inflated home prices. And yet again, wages have lagged behind, but this is why home prices really have been staying at these kind of levels, because again, we're running in a big deficit situation here on housing inventory. All right, so I want to show you guys this article that came out a couple of months ago, because if there is one true tragedy to the economy and the real estate market, it's FOMO spending. Now, I know most of you know what FOMO is, but for those of you that don't, FOMO is an acronym for fear of missing out. And that's exactly what people have been doing. Since the pandemic ended, it's like we were released like wild animals from our cages, and we've been spending with reckless abandon. It doesn't matter if it's clothing, jewelry, cars, homes. Prices have spiked because, again, everyone has been spending like crazy. The corporations know this. They've been raising their prices, and people continue to spend recklessly. That has been the biggest driver as to why prices are where they're at. In fact, I want to show you a little bit deeper down into the article here exactly what the percentage is of people who are willing to admit that they're FOMO spending. All right, so I scrolled down a little bit to the article where you can see the headline right at the top where it says, how many people FOMO spend? And I highlighted those two small paragraphs in blue that I want to read to you guys. It says, as noted above, one recent study found that 40% of people admit to FOMO spending, and those are the ones willing to admit it. The figure could be considerably higher. And then the next paragraph says, one study found almost twice that percentage of people admitting to going into debt to keep up with their friends' spending. So basically, guys, what is happening here is everyone is FOMO spending. They're buying with reckless abandon. They're going into massive amounts of debt. They have really no ability to afford the kinds of things that they're buying. And this has been one of the biggest drivers as to why everything in the economy, especially home prices, have gone up, because when people keep buying like this, there's no end to these kind of price increases until consumer spending drops. And I do believe at some point consumer spending is going to drop, but it's going to take the economy hitting rough water for that to happen. And that could take well into this year, maybe possibly into 2025. All right, so now I want to drill down into the real estate market, and more specifically in my neck of the woods here in beautiful Las Vegas. I want you guys to take a look at this article that just came out a couple of weeks ago from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. This headline says it all. $7,000 a month rental homes hit market in South Las Vegas. Now, this is a small subsection, but this is the kind of thing that a few years ago never existed in a city like Las Vegas, because Las Vegas was once an affordable city, and now it's becoming a lot less affordable. And this kind of scenario where they're doing rental homes for $7,000 a month just goes to show you how out of control prices are, even rental prices here. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit deeper into this article to show you even more troubling news here in Las Vegas. So we all know home and rental prices have skyrocketed since the pandemic, and that's no different here in Las Vegas. But what's more troubling is this section of the article that I highlighted in blue right at the top, and I want to just read a couple of parts of it to you. It says, Redfin estimated last fall the average Las Vegas household now needs to make well over $100,000 annually to be able to afford a mortgage for a home in the Valley. Wall Street-backed hedge funds, institutional investors, and corporate landlords own approximately 15% of the single-family rental housing market in the Las Vegas Valley, a number that has been steadily rising for years and has taken thousands of properties out of the homeowners pool. Now, here's where that's very troubling, because most households, especially here in the Las Vegas area, don't earn anywhere near $100,000+ a year to comfortably afford just the average mortgage payment. But even more troubling is that Wall Street and corporate greed have sunk their teeth into the residential real estate market, and they're trying to own a tremendous amount of homes. They already own thousands and thousands of homes, not just in Las Vegas, but across the country, so that people can rent those homes from them at exorbitant prices. This is why the real estate market is so completely out of control. And again, it's very unfortunate, because a lot of people either don't earn enough money to comfortably afford a home on their own, or they end up having to rent one from these Wall Street-backed corporations, which is a very, very challenging thing for most people to have to deal with. So now I want to show you the median home price in the Las Vegas area. Now, there's currently a little bit less than 4,000 Las Vegas homes for sale right now, but I want to show you this chart going back 1 year. So if we take a look down here in the bottom left, where it says January of 2023, right there in January, February, and March, right where it's flat right there, The price point was $425,000, the median price point here in Las Vegas, and then it started to go up. It went up to the 430s, it went up to the 440s, and then it touched right here about June of last year, about 450, and it's been hovering. You can see as we go across through the rest of the back half of 2023, it's been hovering right around that 445 to 450 mark. But if you notice right here, this is the biggest drop we've seen from December to January. So we were about in the high 440s, and now we've actually dropped down to right about 440. This number is actually a little bit too high. It actually should be down a little bit lower. The price point now has dropped down to about 440, which tells the tale right now as to what's going on with homes that are for sale here in the Las Vegas area. And what I mean by that is that even though housing inventory has remained relatively low here in the Las Vegas area for quite some time, if we take a look down here in the bottom left of that chart again, January, February, and March was very low and very flat during those winter months, which is typical. And then it spiked up in that spring, summertime period and stayed pretty resilient through the rest of the year. But when we see that little drop down right here, that is pretty substantial. And again, because we're in the winter time, it's fair to assume that especially with interest rates still being elevated, that we could see more of a drop on the median home price here in the Las Vegas area. And if the economy does hit rough water and rates do not come down, even though the spring, summer buying season typically pushes prices up, I think the economy is going to hit rough water possibly later this year and into 2025. And I do not see prices sustaining at these levels. I think with more inventory coming to the market from new home builders and more homeowners willing to sell, I believe prices are going to come down, but it may take a while. It's not going to happen overnight, especially here in the Las Vegas area. And just to back up my opinion in that previous section, take a look at this article that just came out last month. This just further proves what's going on here in the Las Vegas real estate market, where this headline says 2023 was the slowest year for Las Vegas housing market in over a decade. And I want to show you something deeper down in the article here that further backs up what I just said in the previous section. Now take a look at that blue highlighted sentence that was quoted in this article. I'm going to read it to you real quick. It says, while we still need more homes on the market, many national experts are predicting at least some increase in housing supply as we get into 2024. Now, granted, one of the bigger reasons as to why there was such a slowdown in home sales here in the Las Vegas area was that there was just an overall lack of supply of homes being able to be sold because, again, homeowners were not willing to sell their homes into those very high interest rates. So homeowners weren't willing to sell. Home builders were trying to catch up with demand. So sales overall were down. But I think especially as we go through this year, there's going to be more homeowners willing to sell because even though interest rates are still elevated, there are more homeowners now willing to sell their homes because they're elevated, but they're not at peak levels anymore. And home builders are now going to start to catch up to demand. And again, because we're still at high prices and high rates, I think there's going to be less buyer demand. Inventory is going to come back onto the market, and there is going to be a little bit of a reprieve on home prices here in the Las Vegas area. So just to summarize, the real tragedy of the economy and the real estate market is a complete lack of affordability. The four things that created this is number one, the pandemic, of course. Number two, inflation. Number three, corporate greed. And number four, FOMO buying. Now, we couldn't control the first three, but we certainly can control the last one. And if we just stop the unending consumer spending, a lot of prices in a lot of sectors would start to finally come down. So before we end today's video, I just want to give a shout out to my favorite comment from last week's video, and that goes to DK. Now I'm going to put DK's comments up here on full screen, which are really pretty shocking. Let's take a look at that right now. DK wrote to me, look back at my budget from last year and my grocery bill was around $350 a month for me and my wife. We usually eat 2 meals a day and we really stretch it out by cooking a roast or homemade chicken soup, etc. My January 2024 budget for food was $711, double the cost from last year. So this is the real tragedy that millions of people are dealing with. People that live well within their means, live on a budget. Look at that person's grocery bill. In 1 year, it's doubled. This is what's so frustrating, that our purchasing power has been completely diminished, so much so from all of the money printing and all of the inflation that's gone on. I want to hear what you guys are frustrated about. Tell me about your grocery bill, your insurance bills, anything that's frustrating you. And my favorite comment from this week's video, I'm going to give a direct on-screen shout out to in next week's video. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I also hope you appreciate my transparency. You know that I'm always going to keep it 100% real on this channel regarding the economy and the real estate market. And guys, we have a lot of problems still going on right now. Inflation is still very much out of control. corporate greed is completely out of control. And the reason why inflation and corporate greed is out of control is because consumer spending is completely out of control. If you don't have to buy things right now, especially high ticket items like a home, sit tight, wait things out. I definitely think home prices are coming down later in 2024. I know everybody's circumstances are different. So if you're thinking about buying a home and you can wait it out, definitely wait it out. If you have to buy sooner rather than later, especially if you're thinking about buying a home here in the Las Vegas area, definitely reach out to me. I've got your back. I'm a local real estate agent. I've lived here for nearly 20 years. I know every inch of this city. When that time is right for you, definitely reach out. Just call, text, or email me anytime, and I'll help you find that perfect dream home. I'll see you guys in the next video.